Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and it is October of 2021. Unfortunately, I did not have time to make a special horror review. I had wanted to do Night Slashers, but unfortunately I ran out of time and went ahead and resurrected my Crystal Caves review that I was actually going to push until 2022. That video was already like half done anyway, but I was just going to wait since October really wasn't that good of a month for a puzzle platformer. I mean, the difficulty is horrifically difficult, but it doesn't really have anything to do with horror themes. But, oh well. I've been devoting a lot of time this month to, for one, recuperating after that bloody Outer Worlds review, and two, getting that Terminator Resistance review ready for November. That is taking me a lot of time, but then again, Terminator Resistance is an RPG, and RPGs take forever to review because they're generally long, they're hard, and oh so wonderful. But anyway, Terminator Resistance, for those who haven't heard of it, is a Terminator RPG created by the same company that made that abominable Rambo game. They must have learned from their mistakes, because Terminator Resistance is an RPG up there with, I suppose, Fallout New Vegas. Yeah, it's not nearly as advanced as Fallout New Vegas, but the story is good, the gameplay is good, just like everything about it is excellent. It actually came out the same year as that horrible, heretical Terminator Dark Fate, but has nothing to do with it and is set in the original James Cameron universe. So that's coming out in November. December, I'm also working on this a little bit as well. I'm going to have a full review of Aliens vs. Predator Classic 2000 in December. And I'm also working on, because these reviews are taking forever and I'm using what spare time I have, also working on Fallout New Vegas for January. Originally it's going to be December, but just don't have time for that. So it's pushed till January. February, this is as far as I'm planning. February for my birthday month. I'm going to be 33. Where did the time go? For my birthday month, I'm going to get Prey 2017 out. That is an absolutely excellent immersive sim kind of game. Like, that game had me up till 3 in the morning, where few games can actually keep my attention that long. So yeah, that's the reviews coming up soon. Not Let's Plays, but live streams. Gonna finish up Fear, then gonna move on to Shadows of the Empire, and then Area 51, and the last one planned is going to be, well, I don't know if I should spoil that. I'll just use this to generate hype. The last one I have planned, and it's not the last one ever, it's just, that's as far as I'm planning, is going to be, and this game does work, No One Lives Forever 1. Oh yes. Could there be a review coming? I don't know. If I don't know, then who does? So yeah, we got some cool shit coming. One thing about Shadows of the Empire, I did the review on the PC version, and that's the one I'm going to live stream. I didn't remember, and I didn't even review it that long ago, but I didn't remember the controls being as finicky as they are. Trying to hit that bloody ATST head is not an easy prospect. Admittingly, that game is so good that I've been playing that in my off time, what little off time I have. It's still really fun, but that game needs a little bit of a remake drastically. It doesn't need much of one, and I wouldn't trust Disney to do it, because evidently KOTOR is going to be remastered or remade for a more contemporary audience. I can only imagine how woke it's going to be. But all that aside, ladies and gentlemen, got some cool stuff coming. No more gun videos until 2022. I really want to get a co-commentator on the next two guns, which is going to be the 10mm 1911 and the M1 carbine. So just have to be patient for that. But as we all know, all good things come to those who wait. Oh, but anyway, this month's little philosophical message is going to be twofold. Number one, we're going to talk about relationships again, and two, talk about life enjoyment again. So both of those things tie into what's coming next month. Next month is going to be my grandparents' 60th wedding anniversary. That's 60 years. If you look at the internet or YouTube or wherever, you're going to see that, like, what's the point of marriage? Or marriage is a zero-sum game, or marriage is stupid, or whatever. You got the two different sides. You got the MGTOWs and you got the radical feminists. Now, if you consider yourself a feminist, and you're not insane, I'm not insulting you, but if you're a radical feminist with like pink hair and think that all men are evil, okay, that's who I'm talking about. Or let's put it another way. Instead of saying feminist, wine-swilling harpy. And for the MGTOWs, well, the name works, I suppose, but honestly, to me, they're bitter old bastards. Now, I will admit, the bitter old bastards do have more of a point than the radical feminists. The bitter old bastards, you know, when they talk about the family court system being against males, they are correct when they say that. They're just not correct about anything else, really. The big problem with the wine-spilling harpies and the bitter old bastards is the fact that they go to extremes. In reality, people come in all shapes and sizes. Some people are good, some people are bad. The wine-swilling harpies like to say that all men are sexual assaulters. Don't want to piss off YouTube. And that simply isn't true. There are a very few males who are going to be like that. They take it to the extreme where every male, no matter what, is one of those. Which I think any woman that's not insane knows that's not true. The bitter old bastards say that all women are prostitutes, which would actually kind of insult me quite a bit, simply because, well, is my grandmother a prostitute? I should think not. But they see women as just users. All women. Even my grandmother. Even my mother. Even a lot of my really good female friends. You know, and knowing them personally, that's not really the case. The problem is, people like to have definitive answers. They want to say, this is this, and it's always this. Reality is, there are a lot of good women out there. There are a lot of good men out there. You just have to find them. Your life is as good as you make it. I've said this a lot, and I continue to say it. Just because you have a failed relationship, or just because you know somebody who is bad, or a psycho, or a wine-swilling harpy, or a bitter old bastard, doesn't mean everyone's gonna be that way. The reality is, you can't let past experiences change your mind on current ones. You can't let what someone else did make you judge someone new. You know, like for me, I've had some difficult relationships in my life, and, you know, I don't use what somebody else did to judge someone new. You know, and that's what you have to do. You can't let what someone did to you ruin your life. You have to move on with your life. That's easier said than done. Believe me, I know it. But it's just something you have to do. Your life is as good as you make it. Your life is as rewarding as you make it. If marriage was terrible or horrible, how did my grandparents stay together for 60 years? And they actually both love and like one another after 60 years. That's something that's fairly rare, because this is where the whole individual responsibility thing comes in. If you're going to get into a relationship, you need to know who you're getting into it with. If you just get into a relationship for sexy fun times, that's not a relationship built upon any sort of stable foundation. If you're going to find somebody to spend the rest of your life with, it needs to be with someone who you actually like as a human being first, and not just as somebody who is attractive and good in bed, as some people would say. The fact is, the bilious bastards who write for the Saturday Evening Post know enough about real relationships as they do about fornicating, which is to say not at all. In a relationship, you have to have both you have to have the friend and the whatever gender you're dating. If you don't have the friend part, then you don't really have much of a foundation to build a lasting relationship upon. Your relationship cannot be built upon money or impressing somebody with some sort of skill. It has to be built upon a foundation of mutual trust and affection. You have to trust that this person's not going to be a complete cretin, and this other person has to legitimately like you as a human being. Males and females both kind of forget both of those concepts. They get into relationships that are toxic because they think somebody likes them, but you can usually tell if somebody doesn't really love you that much, or even like you that much. You can tell from someone's actions. The toxic relationship is something that I think is endemic to the human condition. You know, it's like when you get into a relationship that's mostly good, you don't want it to end because you're afraid that the next relationship you get is going to be bad. It's one of those better the devil you know versus the devil you don't concepts. But the fact is, ladies and gentlemen, number one, you don't have to be in a relationship. That's something that I think really needs to be understood before you even get into a relationship. If your whole life's happiness is predicated on being with somebody, you don't need to be with somebody. You need to work on yourself first and then get together with somebody. A relationship is supposed to mutually enrich both parties. I'm sure I'm pissing off the Magtals and the wine-swilling harpies now. The fact is, a relationship is supposed to bring together two people of mutual interests and mutual affection and raise them up, not require one person to pay the other a lot of money. That's just not how that works. Now, if you go to a prostitute, fine, but when you actually want a fulfilling relationship, money really shouldn't come into it. It shouldn't matter if you're rich or poor. If you have affection for somebody, then it doesn't really matter how much money you have. Now, obviously, you don't want the other person supporting you or something like that, but you get the idea. And so, with that in mind, though, when it comes to these relationships, keep in mind you don't have to be in one. And another thing that is very hard for people to understand, especially if they have just broken up, you can find someone else. It seems, for me, that at one time would have seemed unthinkable. There could be no one better, except that's not true. It really is one of those things where you can find someone who will be very cool, who can have similar views and can have similar interests and can actually have legitimate affection for you, and it can be somebody you never thought you would ever meet. It can happen if you let it happen. If you open up your mind and open up your heart, you can move on from a bad relationship. You don't have to become a bitter old bastard lamenting the horrible person of the past. Instead, you can be a happy, well-adjusted person with someone of the future. It can happen, but it all starts right here. The battle starts here. So to recap, number one, relationships can work. There are good people out there. There is no one gender hates the other. That's just not how that works. Now, psychos on either side may hate each other, but the average person does not. Number two, you don't have to be in a relationship to begin with. Wait until you can be in a mutually beneficial relationship versus just needing to be with someone to make yourself happy, because that leads to a lot of sadness and a lot of toxicity. Three, what you really need to do when you get into a relationship is you need to be a friend to the person as well as everything else. And marriage can work. 60 years of it for my grandparents. But it only works if you go into a relationship wanting to be with the other person because you love the other person as a unique and individual human being. The funny part is, Superman put it best in Superman the Animated Series. Unfortunately, I can't remember the quote at the moment, but it's in the episode of Superman the Animated Series where Superman gets kidnapped by totally not Big Barda, taken to this random and he gets kidnapped by totally not Big Barda, but before this happens, Superman gives like this Superman speech, and we'll get to Superman in a minute after we get through this hippy-dippy crap. But Superman gives a speech about marriage, which is true. You can find it on YouTube, to which one of the characters in the show responds, "What planet is he from?" But it's true. You know, if you want a happy, long-lasting relationship that can last you 60 years, you got to actually both like and love the other person. It can't just be, oh, I love this person, but I hate spending time with them. I guess it's one of those things like during those lockdowns. Now, lockdowns didn't last very long in the U.S. because we have this thing called freedom, but during the little lockdowns that took place in the U.S., there was a lot of issues between partners where they couldn't stand to be with each other for just 2 weeks. In my relationship experience, that really wouldn't have been a big deal because whenever I've been in a relationship, and even now with the relationships I have with people, be they romantic or otherwise, you know, I can talk to people for 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, whatever, you know. If you can't talk, if you're gonna have if you talk to your friends for hours on end, you should be able to do the same with whatever partner you're trying to have, I guess is the best way to put it. If you can't, that relationship's not gonna last very long. Because you gotta have that friend part attached to, well, whoever you're dating. And now, with life enjoyment. This is something that I also have been thinking about lately, simply because I'm going to be 33 in the space year 2022. Not that old, not really. But I actually have had a life that has been somewhat difficult, although certainly less difficult than others. But at the ripe old age of 33, I'm still fairly happy. In life, you have to have a reason to live other than just material goods. As of now, I have recently purchased a M1 carbine. Now, that doesn't make me happy, because material goods cannot bring happiness. Money cannot bring happiness. What money provides is a medium of exchange for goods and services. Money is a means to an end. Making money allows you to do things. What you do with that money can make you happy, but material goods cannot. Growing up, I was never particularly well off, let's say. We would definitely have been considered poor. But I always considered myself quite a bit richer than even the rich kids that I knew of back during my school years, simply because I had such an excellent family, and still do. The fact is, there is more to life than money, and there's more to life than material goods. You, the individual, have to find what makes you happy beyond simply buying stuff. Stuff is cool. Buying an M1 carbine, can't wait to go shoot it. But the fact is, I'm looking more forward to shooting it with my family than just shooting it myself. I like having the M1 carbine, but I could live without it, because it is ultimately just a temporary object. Finding, love, getting married and stuff like that, that is the stuff that really lasts beyond the material goods. Money is spent. Power wanes. Prestige is forgotten. But love and finding your purpose in life, or perhaps not even finding a purpose, but just finding a way to live happily ever after, is eternal. That is one thing to point out, that finding purpose in life is a difficult thing, but ultimately, you need to find more than just purpose. You need to find a way to basically live life and be happy, even if you have accomplished that purpose. My grandfather is 81 years old. He has been retired for some time now, and yet, unlike some, he has not decayed and died within 3 years after no longer having a job. Why? Because he has a multitude of hobbies, he has a multitude of interests, and he has a family that loves him and will constantly bug him to go do things, even if he'd rather sit around reading a book. And so that is really kind of what one has to do in order to, well, not die. Another thing to point out about not dying is if you're alive, you can change the life in which you live. If you're dead, that's a little bit more difficult. It's one of those things, ladies and gentlemen. There are times in life where it seems like nothing will ever go right. It seems like nothing will ever be good. But if you work hard enough, if you think hard enough, if you look outside the proverbial box that you live within, you can potentially bring forth a happy future, which I have. I've only really been living my best life for 3 years, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. And it was entirely by my will that I was able to do that. I chose to stop being a 30-year-old loser and get out there and get my life in order. And you can do it too. It's very easy to make an excuse. It's very easy to say nothing will ever work, because then you don't have to try as hard. In theory, I used to be one of those people that would say nothing ever works, there's no point to living. I definitely had been popping so many black pills, it was like I was eating licorice jelly beans. But the fact was, it didn't make me any happier. And that's the thing, when you give up on life, or you say defeatist things to yourself, you're not making anything better. You're just saying like, oh, I don't have to try. You're still gonna be sad. It's much easier to just say, I'm going to try. Yeah, you might not succeed at first, or even the third time, or even the fifth. But if you keep trying, eventually you will break through that wall. And that's the key factor. It can be done. There's a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of articles saying these things can't be done. They want you to be a victim. They want you to give up. Why? Because it gets them clicks. If you say nothing will ever work, or why dating is this, or why this is that, it gets the clicks. But the reality is, until you put nose to grindstone, nothing can ever really be good. Life is what you make of it. And if you work hard enough, you might be able to fall in love and get married and be married for 60 years. If you work hard enough and really work on yourself, work on this, you can be 81 years old and still getting around. Or, conversely, you can be 91 years old and get launched into space like Shat. It's ultimately what you make of it. And that's really all there is to it. And there's no easy answer. There is no answer. Life is a constant learning experience. YouTube videos want the clicks. I could put up a video on like how to live life and I'd get 1 million clicks. Probably not. But the fact is, there is hope for everyone if you're willing to work hard enough. if you're willing to think hard enough. It's not survival of the strongest, it's survival of the most adaptable and the most free thinking. And so, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, marriage and relationships can be good. Life can be good. You can have more than just random material goods and unsatisfying relationships on Tinder or whatever the kids use these days. You can have more if you're willing to work for it. And so with that, it's time for me to complain about comic books. So yeah, Superman, truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. The American way is something that I've never really talked too much about. You know, America in many respects can be considered an ideal. America is really the most free place on the planet. When I was a kid and I'd been seeing the political corruption and things of that nature, I was like, well, I'd rather live somewhere else, but somewhere else just wasn't that much better. You know, you look at America being called all these things throughout history, you know, especially recent history, and the obvious thing to anyone that isn't politically indoctrinated into some sort of insane group is, well, if America's that bad, why are people coming here? It can't be for the tax rate, that's for sure. It can't be for the regulations, that's also for sure. But American society is very free. The lockdowns and the other insanities going on around the world would never fly here and never did. When everything was supposed to be locked down, people went out. When people are supposed to keep their mouth shut, they don't. America is a place where you truly can breathe free in a way that you can't really anywhere else. The regulations on hate speech don't exist here. You can say whatever you want. And that is a very good thing. If you don't like what someone says, don't listen to them. If someone attacks you, well, defend yourself or call the cops, one or the other. And that's the other thing. Police. Some are good, some are bad. To say every single police officer out there is evil is, well, hyperbole and bullshit. Some police are good. Some police are bad. Some police will save people. Some police will harm people. The fact is, it's just the way it is. There are 30,000 separate police agencies in the United States, and there's probably more than that. That's an estimate. You can't expect every single police officer in every single municipality, city, and things of that nature to actually be 100% good. The thing is, you never hear the stories about police saving people, or if they try to save someone, they're called the evil villain. You got a knife-wielding maniac and a police officer defends the person the knife-wielding maniac is about to kill. Well, of course, you know, the police officer is obviously the bad guy. But the fact is, the police are not all bad. All men aren't all bad. All women aren't all bad. The thing is, you, the individual, need to essentially just think for yourself. The media is in the business of getting clicks. That's it. America isn't as bad as you've been told via the media. Why? Because the media wants to make money. And if they say, oh, America, you know, it has its flaws, but it's still by and large a pretty good place to live for X number of reasons. No, America is evil. You'll get shot. It's like, that's not really how that works. And so we're going to wrap up this hippy-dippy crap that I'm kind of just rambling now with just, as I've always said in all these monthly vlogs, just think for yourself. That's the best way to live life, because you ultimately have to come up with your own opinion. I can't tell you how to think. I can't tell you what to think. I'm just going to say, try thinking. Have you tried using this? Because once you start really looking beyond just the obvious, once you start really looking at the fine print and details, you find things aren't quite what people have said they are. And so, with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, I am General Lotz, and I'm going to wish you good truth and good justice and good American way, whatever makes you happy.